The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, implies by its judgment that crime is good and should be rewarded. Then Nigeria has lost and the country is doomed, irrespective of who occupies the presidential seat. If the Supreme Court decides that electoral umpire INEC can tell the public one thing and then do something else in order to reach a corruptly predetermined outcome, then there is really no hope for the country's democracy and electoral politics. Atiku said obvious consequences of those decisions for the country will not end at the expiration of the current government. They will last for decades. I'm absolutely sure that history will vindicate me. We now know what the Supreme Court has decided.
As long as Nigeria wins, the struggle would have been worth the while. By that, I meant that the bigger laws would not be mine, but Nigeria's, if the Supreme Court legitimizes illegality, including forgery, identity theft, and perjury as it has done. If the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, implies by its judgment that crime is good and should be rewarded, then Nigeria has lost, and the country is doomed irrespective of who occupies the presidential seat.
When I joined politics, the critical challenge was easing the military out of power so that civilian democratic governance could be restored in Nigeria. It later became a very defining struggle, and as one of the leaders of that struggle, I was targeted for elimination. He said his stand at the Appeal and Supreme Court, respectively, was about the reputation of Nigeria and Nigerians in the eyes of the world. He said his party showed incontrovertible evidence that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not qualified to contest the presidential election because he allegedly forged the qualifying academic certificate, which is submitted to INEC, saying that a simple check of Tinubu's past record in its possession would have shown INEC that President Tinubu broke the law and should not have been allowed to contest the election in the first place.
At the current historic moment, the easy option for me would have been to fall off and retreat after the mandate banditry perpetrated by the APC and INEC. But I went to the Nigerian courts to seek redress. I even went to an American court to help with unraveling what our state institutions charged with such responsibilities were unwilling or unable to do, including unraveling the qualifying academic records of the person sworn in as our president, and by implication, hopefully, who he really is. I offered that evidence, procured with the assistance of the American court to our Supreme Court, to help it do justice in this case. I give this background to underscore that what we are currently dealing with is bigger than 1 or 2 presidential elections, and is certainly bigger than Atiku Abubakar.
He said a situation where a candidate submits contradictory credentials to INEC in different election cycles and the electoral umpire accepts them without question points to gross negligence at best or collusion to break the law by the leadership of the INEC at worst. The submission of contradictory qualifying documents by a candidate as well as those found to be forged or falsified should disqualify a candidate even if the falsification or forgery is discovered after the person had been sworn into office. Praise Irabo, reporting for BTV News.